Reflections of a Simple American. Brought to you by Spirituality. Episode 1, Part 5, George Washington's Farewell Address. Greetings, citizen, and welcome back. In this episode of Reflections of a Simple American, I look forward to your company in listening to Washington turn his attention to the subjects of virtue, morality, and public credit. I invite you to stick around to hear his words and reflect on these important matters. Chapter 5. Virtue, Morality, and Public Credit.
It is important, likewise, that the habits of thinking in a free country should inspire caution in those entrusted with its administration, to confine themselves within their respective constitutional spheres, avoiding in the exercise of the powers of one department to encroach upon another. The spirit of encroachment tends to consolidate the powers of all the departments in one, and thus to create, whatever the form of government, a real despotism. A just estimate of that love of power and proneness to abuse it which predominates in the human heart is sufficient to satisfy us of the truth of this position. The necessity of reciprocal checks in the exercise of political power, by dividing and distributing it into different depositories, and constituting each the guardian of the public weal against invasions by the others, has been evinced by experiments ancient and modern, some of them in our country and under our own eyes. To preserve them must be as necessary as to institute them. If, in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation. For though this, in one instance, may be the instrument of good, it is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. The precedent must always greatly overbalance in permanent evil any partial or transient benefit, which the use can at any time yield. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism, who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. The mere politician, equally with the pious man, ought to respect and to cherish them. A volume could not trace all their connections with private and public felicity. Let it simply be asked, where is the security for property, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation desert the oaths which are the instruments of investigation in courts of justice? And let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason, and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. It is substantially true that virtue or morality is a necessary spring of popular government. The rule, indeed, extends with more or less force to every species of free government. Who, that is a sincere friend to it, can look with indifference upon attempts to shake the foundation of the fabric? Promote, then, as an object of primary importance, institutions for the general diffusion of knowledge. In proportion as the structure of a government gives force to public opinion, it is essential that public opinion should be enlightened. As a very important source of strength and security, cherish public credit. One method of preserving it is to use it as sparingly as possible, avoiding occasions of expense by cultivating peace, but remembering also that timely disbursements to prepare for danger frequently prevent much greater disbursements to repel it. Avoiding likewise the accumulation of debt, not only by shunning occasions of expense, but by vigorous exertions in time of peace to discharge the debts which unavoidable wars may have occasioned, not ungenerously throwing upon posterity the burthen which we ourselves ought to bear. The execution of these maxims belongs to your representatives, but it is necessary that public opinion should cooperate. To facilitate to them the performance of their duty, it is essential that you should practically bear in mind that towards the payment of debts there must be revenue, that to have revenue there must be taxes, that no taxes can be devised which are not more or less inconvenient and unpleasant, that the intrinsic embarrassment inseparable from the selection of the proper objects, which is always a choice of difficulties, ought to be a decisive motive for a candid construction of the conduct of the government in making it, and for a spirit of acquiescence in the measures for obtaining revenue, which the public exigencies may at any time dictate.
Interpretation and reflection.
Washington begins the next section of the address by speaking of the importance of a cautionary line of thinking, that those in the administration should be limiting themselves to stay within their respective duties within the government and not encroaching upon other governmental duties. He is speaking of separation of powers here. This isn't solely limited to individuals, but also includes departments within the government as well. He warns that as departments encroach upon others, consolidation of powers occurs, and the result is despotism. He warns of the love of power and our own human nature and potential to want to abuse power. Washington then speaks on the necessity of having checks and balances within the government to ensure that power is appropriately divided and distributed, and cites that this has been proven by different governments from very old to current in his time. He speaks on the importance of instituting them. He then goes on to say that if the people deem this system needing to be changed, let them pursue the legal and established method of changing them, through an amendment to the Constitution, but warns of usurpation of these principles, as some may seek this out of a desire to do good, but this method is typically the, quote, customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed, end quote. I think this last bit is very important, as it warns that even if we seek to bypass the constitutional process to wield power out of a desire to do good, it still opens up the capacity for it to be used for evil. In this next paragraph, Washington begins by talking about religion and morality, and how they are necessary supports leading to political prosperity. He really leans in heavily to their importance here, as he references them as, quote, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens, end quote, and how it is in vain that one could claim patriotism while at the same time seeking to subvert these ideals. He mentions that all should respect and cherish them, from the politician to the pious man. He then asks a reflective question regarding the courts and how they might function should those forsake their oaths as they perform their duties there. Next, Washington speaks on being cautious to believe that morality can be maintained without religion, speaking on that in few cases of those with educated minds it can, but this is generally not the case for the masses. The last part of this paragraph hung me up for a bit, and I went back and forth on questioning if Washington meant that morality through philosophical education could replace religion for many. This line of questioning was only partially right, as he was really saying that in some rare cases this was true, but for national morality, we do need religion. In this next paragraph, Washington speaks about how virtue or morality is necessary to have a successful popular government, and even extends this into a requisite for free government. He asks a reflective question, that how could anyone who calls themselves a friend to these principles look upon attempts to diminish them with indifference? In this next paragraph, Washington continues his thoughts on virtue and morality, giving counsel that institutions be promoted that spread knowledge, as in order for an elective type of government to work properly, the people should be well informed. To me, this is very important. What institutions do we have that are genuinely spreading the truth? Do we have institutions in our days that are seeking to spread information for other purposes? To conclude this section of the address, Washington speaks about public credit. He is speaking of fiscal responsibility and that we should be careful with our spending. He advises us that we can achieve this if we are, quote, cultivating peace, end quote. But then follows up with counsel that it is sometimes needed to spend a little extra if the preparation will save us later on, because the current expenditure avoids greater spending later. He advises us to avoid great amounts of debt by also paying down our debt in times of peace, so that we aren't adding to the burden of future generations. He puts the responsibility on representatives here, but also adds that the public bears some of this as well. He then goes down a logical path here that in order to pay back debt, there must be revenue, and that in order to have revenue, there must be taxes. I like how he links all of these things together, and I see the logic of his thinking here. I believe that if a government is responsible with its spending, the general public will be more accepting of having to pay taxes, so being accountable is of utmost importance here.
Thanks for stopping by. If you haven't seen episodes 1 through 4 yet, you can find them on the Spirituality YouTube channel. Episode 6 is planned to release on Saturday, August 8th, so stay tuned if you'd like to continue to study Washington's farewell address together.